Welcome to The Naked Podcaster. Get ready to hear the story of someone strong enough to bear it all. The Naked Podcaster is a representation of freeing yourself, giving you permission to be real in all your quirkiness, baggage, struggles to success, and tragedy to triumph. I'm so excited you're joining the journey. Your past doesn't define you, but it does lead you on a path to today. Let's get naked. Hello and welcome to the Naked Podcaster. I'm Jen Taylor, and today I'm expecting to have a lot of fun. I am with Dom Brightmon. How are you today, Dom?
Doing fabulous. How's the Jen feeling?
I'm awesome. Your name is like Dom Perignon, right?
That's right. Feel free to drink all of me if you want to. I'm chocolate.
Are you going to let people know what that means? Or we'll just, no, actually there's a picture attached. Your website's attached. Your website is dombrightmon.vip.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Very important podcaster, yeah.
Very important podcaster. Tell me about the website. I have it up, but for people who aren't familiar.
Oh, yeah. So dombrightmon.vip. So, yeah, kind of like before the whole magical record button. Got these two magic websites. One's the mobile version, one's the regular version. Working on this whole Wix migration process out of, or should I say Exodus. In the mobile version, it's great because it's like, yeah, what if you want to know something about me, it's right there. Contact page, social media, the podcast itself. Of course, Jen was on the wonderful podcast as well, the Warrior Princess, indeed, or should I say the Warrior Queen was on the podcast. And it's just really awesome. So right now what I'm doing is just promoting both my books as well as future speaking engagements, as well as future projects as well. I'm also a member of the John Maxwell team. It becomes official at the end of August 2019. So looking forward to that, as well as going to be a big vacation. Looking forward to networking with a whole bunch of wonderful people and continuing to put steroids in my personal development.
Oh, I love that. Tell me what the John Maxwell program is. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, so for those who don't know and have been living under five rocks, John Maxwell is the world's #1 leadership expert. He is a New York Times bestselling author of probably like 10 out of his 80-plus books and counting. And he's probably like, I think he's like 76 now. He's like in his early 70s now. He started off as a young preacher out in Indiana and grew up and became this great pastor with one of the top 10 growing churches in the nation multiple times in California, and became a full-time just leadership coach, teacher, and instructor, and he calls himself a motivational teacher. And those who are part of his team, he likes to call us his legacy legs, because after he's gone, he still has folks that are still teaching the stuff that he learned in his life journey as well. And his books have really inspired me to really get on the personal development track. And I'm like, you know what? I got a couple friends in the team. They seem to enjoy it. I hear nothing but good things about it. He's my favorite author of all time. So you know what? I was going to invest in it, invest in myself. It's a great opportunity. Looking forward to networking with others, reconnecting with some old friends, and just growing like a giant tree.
That is the way to do it. His name, of course, I know who he is, but I didn't know what his program was. So that's very cool.
Yeah, soon to be certified disc instructor. So different types of leadership too. So the DIC. So it's kind of like the Myers-Briggs in a way, but it's like with more like leadership, like the D, I believe that is direct, kind of like the D's, the people like the D in charge, like the top 3% of the folks. The I, the influencer, that's me. I'm usually the guy talking with other folks, getting them to join the party, the parade or whatever. The S, that's usually for the supporter. That's about a good 30, 60% of the U.S. folks just like support, usually the nurses, other folks who like to help other people. Then the C, these are, I forgot the C, to be honest. That's why it says soon to be distractors. I'm not fully in there yet. I got like 3 different books I'm reading at a time. But yeah, the C is usually the accountants, the number crunchers, those who love detail and love attention to detail, like software for whatnot. So being able to administer that as well too.
I took the DISC test maybe 5 years ago. I actually know what I am. So what? See, I didn't know that was it. I love tests. I love taking quizzes about yourself because I think it's a huge part of self-development. And I know some people feel like, well, I know who I am, but when you see it in black and white and it's laid out, it's very introspective. The process can be very introspective. So I really love it. I love taking the test. Yes.
You're an I too, aren't you?
I'm an ISDC. Woo!
Oh, yeah, looks so great. This is great.
I know. Well, you're an I also, right?
Exactly.
Yes, it is the best one. Unless you're something else, and then you're totally cool too. So I just learned something new. That is very cool. You also have been a member of Toastmasters for a while. So fill me in on that because I'm bragging on you.
It's great to brag on others, especially when they're fabulous. But yeah, Toastmasters, been a part of that. Wow, funny enough, it'll be 6 years in September. Started back in 2013 in fall, listening to one of Brian Tracy's audiobooks where I mentioned Toastmasters. And for my kid at the time, they wanted me to do a public speaking seminar because I volunteered for it out of the list of programs since that one fit me the most at the time. And I had no idea how to run a seminar. I mean, yeah, I had the speaking experience in the church and outside of the church. Yeah, I can speak, yeah. But like a seminar, that is not my cup of tea at the time. So listened to a few audiobooks, went to the Toastmasters Club, networked with a few other speakers, ended up getting one of my best friends to do the seminar part, at least the first half of it. Yeah, one thing about that seminar I learned that I'll never do again if I do a public speaking seminar, all on public speaking, is the fact that I'm not going to put on the agenda audience participation after the initial keynote because that fear of public speaking statistic is so real. About 90 people were in the room to hear my buddy speak, and they enjoyed it for the hour. And then after the break, about 10 people were left for the other half of the darn seminar. So I'm like, oh, God, you know what? Let's sneak it in next time. That way they can overcome their fear as opposed to just making a run for it. But yeah, Toastmasters, after that seminar, I was able to really just stay with it because they were leaving stuff on the table because I thought, you know what? Do I go one way and forget about me, some no success, or do I just stay with Toastmasters? And I stayed with it because it was a chance for me to have a laboratory, a sandbox, in a way to build my sandcastles known as talks and whatnot, and just test different things with different audiences. I'm a member of right now currently 3 different clubs that meet on 3 different days and oversee about 5 clubs out in the Towson, Rosedale area of Maryland. So really ingrained in it back into just leadership and communication because leaders speak and they listen, and to be able to get folks to buy into your ideas, you have to be able to communicate that message effectively. If you're in a low impact networking environment for introverts where everybody has the same goal, then it's great to actually be in that environment because you get to learn from others. Everybody's the same goal in a way. Some may want more out of it than others, and that's okay. I'm one of those folks because it's like, hey, you got to be an outlier somewhere in life and actually try to get something out of life. It's like you got to channel that inner drive to want to do something good. So it's been one heck of a wild ride. Became a published author after that, got on this podcast with you, had you on my podcast. So it's really a great thing, just taking what you have, experimenting with it, and then just seeing what alchemy you can have out of it.
Tell me the story. I've read both of your books. The first one is Going North, and the second one is Stay the Course. You did something in the second one that I don't remember in the first one, and it may just be because I read that one initially. At the end of Stay the Course, you had like a reference library. It was like 50 books that you love, and you're an avid reader. And I love that because sometimes, you don't know what the next book should be that you read, anyway, I loved that. And then you did quotes.
Yep.
So, but I mean, there's lots I loved about the books, but you did, that was a really cool ending. I really appreciated that. So it's like you have a reference to a couple different things, but tell me about the books. And I want to know the story on a little bit, because we're going to go back in time. So if it ties in, we can wait on some of it. But I remember reading a story about you writing a book. Someone challenged you and you said no. And then,
Yep.
So can you tell me that story?
Yeah, sure. So funny enough, there's this activity in a book called The Magic of Getting What You Want by David Schwartz, where he mentions writing an obituary about what you want to accomplish in life. I wrote an obituary about myself, and excuse me, and one of those things was to become a published author, and a best-selling one at that. So after writing that obituary a few months later in Toastmasters, funny enough, at a fall conference, it was at the networking break, and this one lady, I don't know why, for some strange reason, I was drawn to her for some reason. We met each other before, and for some reason, it's like, all right, just handed her this list of books called The 100 Books of Dynamic Living, which is in the first book. And I just handed out this list to her. She just looked at the list, then she looked right back at me, looked at the list, looked at me, and asked me where my book was on this list. And I was like, man, I'm 23 at the time. What the hell am I going to write about? And I was just dumbfounded about it. I was like, nah. And what makes the story even more fun is the fact that it was after the obituary was written too. It's like you get this key to unlocking that door of making it happen. It's like she challenged me to write a book. I was like, no. And she's like, she was really selling it to me too. It's like, yeah, Dominic Brightmon, author, best-selling author. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. No, not doing it. And she even offered to join me in the writing process. Like, hey, let's give ourselves both a year, both write our books and publish them. And I was like, nope, I'm good. And funny enough, a few days later, went to a Toastmasters meeting. And funny enough, in between the meeting and the conference, one of my friends, a good name buddy, Sean Purvis, he had this book out called Burn the Box. And the second book was supposed to be a follow-up book called Top Shelf Customer Service. And I kept asking him about it because I bought the book and supported him. I was like, hey, support your friends, right? And every time I kept asking him, I was like, oh, God, no, that was like 2009. I don't drink that much anymore, no. And I'm like, that's good. You don't drink anymore. That's good, man. So what's going to store the book? Oh, eventually. So he saw this as a perfect moment in the meeting to actually get him a case about the little story that I had with the lady encounter I had with the woman at the conference, because there was a Q&A session in the speech. And this had nothing to do with the speech. He was like, hey, Dom, so when's your book coming out, buddy? And I wanted to drop kick him right there for that one. I'm like, no. Yeah, I'm like, yep. Whatever poise I had at that moment, it was completely lost. Even one of the ladies in the audience, Chuck, was like, yeah, we got him. I'm like, oh, crap. So I was like, you know what? Budget. I said, a year from today, I'm going to publish my book. And everybody was cheering me on. I was like, yeah, I can't wait for it. And then after the meeting was over, ran home, wrote down 14 pages of content for the book that ended up being the last chapter of the first book, and really just went into hibernation period, and it was born about 9 months later.
Nice job. So it was an exercise and then a challenge, but it has to, 85% of people who want to write a book don't. That's the last statistic and for those of us who have written books, man, it's no easy task.
Especially when it's published and it's in your hand. It's like, yeah, it feels so good, but I'm immortal now. Who's gonna buy it?
I don't think, of course you want to be a New York Times bestseller or an Amazon bestseller, or you want to make a difference to people. And I just thought if one person picks it up and it makes a difference, then it was a job well done. But I think if you go into it knowing that the biggest thing is that you are helping yourself initially, you're getting your story out, fiction, nonfiction, it doesn't matter. You are birthing the story that's trapped inside of you, which is what it felt like to me. I don't know about you. And it's an exceptional process. So, yay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And I bet a bunch of folks asked you to help them with their books after you finally got that one done, right?
Yeah, did you have a lot of people ask you to help?
Yeah, I got questions. Folks offered to take me out to lunch and dinner and whatnot. It's like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah. 10. It's like, shoot, all right, why not? And a few of them became authors of their own after that. At least 5 that I know of. And it's like, shoot, man, it's like, I just thought I was going to write a book and get it out there. I didn't think about the marketing or the selling. It's like, all right, this might help somebody. Just put it out there, just get it done. And then, I don't know, it was like, oh, shoot, wait, an actual business can actually transform into a business. No, people, this is awesome. Like, oh, okay.
I had no idea. That it would be like the best business card you could ever own. And I'm glad because when you go into it, like I have this story and I want to do it, maybe it will help people. It's an altruistic feeling. And then afterwards, when you realize it, you're like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm the same person that I was the day before it was published, but awesome. But it is a really great accomplishment. So then you are a best-selling author.
Yep. That's where book 2 came in. It happened this past April, made number 21 under personal growth, under Christian business. So I'm like, you know what? This is awesome. It happened. Oh, sweet. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Now folks ask for the 3rd book. I'm like, oh, man, I wanted to take like a 3-year hiatus. Like, come on, man.
I wasn't going to ask if there was a 3rd book because once you've written a book and people ask you that, you're like, yeah, where's your first one? Yeah, I thought so. But but you just said, so no plan on the 3rd book since you just brought it up?
No, there's a plan on it. It's just that, just my inner grizzly bear just wants to chill out in the cave and, yawn and be lazy for a moment. But, no, 3rd book's coming out. It's going to be like a Beyonce album. It's going to just show up out of nowhere.
Is it going to follow, I'm guessing, the same thread that the first 2 did?
It's definitely going to follow the same thread. I have an idea for it. It may be a book based on questions and answers. So like giving a set of questions, because there's a few questions I've picked up from other books I've read and then modified them for my own and asked them of my own stuff, my own life. It's like, you know what, this might help someone else. Is like, because I remember, funny enough, it comments like, yeah, book, you can't read every book in your life. Some books leave you more questions than answers. I'm like, oh, okay, crap. Well, that's one guy's opinion. So you know what, it might be a good little spin on that because some folks still don't think, and if they think, they can probably think even bigger. It's like you need to get around folks that help you to think a lot bigger. Heck, even yourself, Jen, you mentioned the wonderful mentor you had in grade school that saw something positive in you and something great in you. It's like you just need to be around folks like that and then ask yourself questions that will help you get to that level to help light a candle on someone else's flame.
The reason I'm glad that it came up is because my next question was going to be about your podcast, but you interview people who are authors. And I would think that the volume of information you've received from the podcast, from the questions you've asked and the information, that would be at least 1 book in and of itself.
Oh, yeah. Down the road, that's probably going to be a project down the road, similar to what Tim Ferriss does in his past 2 releases. There's definitely going to be Going North podcast, the book, to like siphon money back into the production of the podcast, keep some metaphorical gas in the tank. But yeah, that's definitely going to be down the road as well. That's definitely a book. I mean, 15 books in a lifetime is the goal, so we'll see how close I get.
All right. So now take me back. Where you said where you were living. Can you tell us again?
Oh, yeah, what, the land of charm, crime, and crabs known as Baltimore, right?
I'm yes. So.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Charm and crabs. Perfect. Tell me about growing up. You've mentioned church before, and you did mention that briefly. I know your story. I know lots of people know your story, but for people who don't, you got comfortable in front of an audience because of church. So take me through that and your family. I want to hear about your family.
Oh, yeah. Funny enough, my wonderful parents, mother and father, they were a little more seasoned when I came around. My Well, like funny enough, my dad had like gray hair. He always had gray hair and a whole full beard and goatee and everything. And for years, I thought he was like 40 until I got into like later grade school. He was like, "Wait, you sure you're 40?" Like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And then it's like, "Oh, yeah, really in the 60s." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, I was like, "Dang, okay, sweet. There's hope for me." And funny enough, my mother, wonderful lady, she worked for Baltimore County government. She was a case manager as well at times. She loved helping people get jobs, and especially some folks who may have recently got out of prison as well, just helping them find employment as well, and just helping out people. And she also loved to teach as well. So whenever there was a chance to do some teaching, especially after she retired, wow, that was like 16 years ago now. Wow, yeah, she usually just loves to teach kids, especially about the Bible and whatnot. And they were the guardians of my life. My parents are my guardian angels in a way, even though one's fully guardian angel at the moment. And just really learning from them and just having them and just with just them. My father was a man of faith. He prayed every morning. Sometimes I would hear him praying, like, "Lord, please protect my child," on the way to school. And had 6 years of public school and then 6 years of private school. So grades 1 through 6, that was public school. So I had elementary and middle, the pre-K and all the good stuff. The other 6 was private school. Went to Christian school, got some Bible lessons. So my parents are a little more lenient, let me sleep in on like Sunday mornings on occasion. So it's like, yeah, you get Bible classes every week. We'll be nice to you. You don't have to go to Sunday school every day, and just stuff like that, and just being with them. And heck, even my brother as well. He was older than me too, and playing with them and wrestling. And it couldn't be too rough because like freaking like 15, 20 years older than me. It's like I'm like freaking 5 or whatnot. It's like, yeah, it's got to be careful of the guy wrestling with him and all that stuff. So that was really a little bit about growing up with my wonderful parents, my older brother as well. They've always been there for me. Always spoke positive thoughts into me. They always cared for me. Even wanted me to experience some things. I mean, I couldn't get the full experience because my father, even though he's also a spiritual man, he also was a veteran as well. Was in World War II. Also served in the Korean War. Had a couple combat jumps in the 82nd Airborne Division. But after that, when I came around, it was basically senior citizen status. No traveling or whatnot, and couldn't really experience that part. But he was still kind and all that other good stuff. Taught me some things and all that wonderful smooth jazz. And even in church, reciting Bible scriptures on every Sunday in front of at least 800 to 1,000 people every Sunday. It's like if you do that at a young age, it's like it's not so bad when you actually get up on the platform for the first time. So just having that great foundation.
So your parents were just older when you were born and your brother was older, but otherwise totally normal. Great childhood.
Yeah, old soul, sonic youth.
So you finished high school. What was next?
Yeah, high school, went to a community college, CCBC, went for my IT degree. Funny enough, last semester got into car accident, wasn't really feeling the whole IT thing at first, but still was able to push through with it. And actually went for a certification test, and I really wasn't too passionate about it because I was winning there for the money. It was like, yeah, I go for IT degrees, say you get a job as soon as you graduate. And funny enough, I had a part-time job at the library, and shortly after that certification exam that I failed, they actually offered me the full-time position, funny enough. I'm like, oh, okay, shoot, I'll take that. Like the bennies, the money. It's like, okay, health insurance, vacation time, leave time, that's good. Do something else afterwards.
You worked in the library in high school. Tell us about that, because you took that experience and turned it into something pretty wonderful. When I've read what you've said about it. So how did that happen? And you had a great perspective.
Oh, yeah. So that was actually when I was 15. It was summer. Mom wanted me to get some job experience. The local library had openings for a summer youth internship program, was brought on, and they liked me enough to actually want me back in the fall when I turned 16, so I could legally work. And it was really great. It was a transformational process because I'm an introvert. I usually recharge by being alone. And even though I was at church being a church usher as well, welcoming people as a kid, it's like still wasn't really comfortable around people. I still wasn't out of my shell in a way. And when you're working in a public library, you get all sorts of crazy characters and wonderful people all at once. It's kind of like an organization. The best and worst thing about the organization is the people. It's like people leave people, not organizations. And there's also wonderful people that make it great. So had mentors at work, had this guy, security guard, always telling funny stories, making everybody laugh, flirting with some of the ladies that came in, modeled some of my behavior after him, had a great supervisor, really hard charging lady came in as a volunteer manager, and she just rose through the ranks really quickly in a couple of years, became manager of her whole department, and really cares about personal development, personal growth, always reading, and she's one of my role models as well in that. And just interacting with people and customer service, it's really a great thing for me. And that was one of the best things that happened for me in my life, because being around others helped me to transform in the process. And really what you're around the most, you'll eventually become. So you'll eventually be able to have some stories to tell and all the other good stuff, and really just keep on going, because libraries in the 21st century, they're more than books. Circulation is down, at least in certain libraries across the world, because most folks come to the libraries, especially public ones, for the Wi-Fi, the programs, the computers and stuff for their kids. Like most of my day is helping folks with their computer troubles. Like if they're on a website, like a job website, applying for a job, and some of the websites suck. Personally, they suck really bad. They suck really bad. And just navigating through those resumes, like even with the kids sometimes, things like that. So that's really just one of the greatest things ever. Like if you have a public library nearby, just stop by, pay a visit, like dust off the old library cards, see if it still works. We're more than the card catalog. We don't even carry those anymore.
Yeah, I remember that, but we don't need to talk about that anymore. But the libraries, you can actually reserve, like the library here, I've reserved space in it for seminars. There's all kinds of things you can do. You took it, though. I don't know where your love of reading came, if it was already instilled in you before that and you just capitalized on it, but you were an avid reader. So you were forcing yourself out of your comfort zone through your customer service and talking to people. You're also learning a whole bunch of unique skills by helping people. And then you were also pushing yourself to become better by voraciously reading. When did the reading start?
Yeah, that started off, funny enough, or at least the voracious reading, that started off around New Year's Eve 2013 after the car accident. And for some reason, I don't know why, it was one of those reflection moments where you're at the John or whatever, and you're like, you know what, let's do this New Year's mantra thing, where you set a 1 to 3 word theme for a year. And 2013 was my year of rebirth. And after picking up one of John Maxwell's books, The 5 Loves of Leadership, and reading more of his stuff and just really taking action on the activities in the books. That's the thing about reading, especially nonfiction books. Actually take some of the activities in the books not for granted, but actually do them and see what happens. Because one of the activities, I call it the mirror force method. It's where you ask a few folks in your network, in like close family or friends, to just list around a good 3 to 5 things that they like about you and 3 to 5 things that they've noticed about you that you can improve on. And when I got the list back of things, like some of the things, like, all right, that makes sense. Like, what? Antisocial tendencies? Really? Like, oh, okay, let me get out of that. And taking the advice and working on it, like that really just helps. So the voracious reading came after the whole like car accident moments, like, something's got to change here. It's like not just Nickelback music, but like something's got to change here.
No kidding. Okay, so you've referenced it a couple times. You were taking the IT test. You weren't really passionate. You've been working in the library for several years at this point. And at 21,
Oh yeah.
Dive into what happened.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. That was a fun one. Yeah, woke up that day on my way to class. Funny enough, left the gas station, filling up the car, and then it was raining earlier that morning, like a few hours before, but the streets were mostly dry. It wasn't really damp, and like out of nowhere, after I pull out the gas station drive, about to make a left turn, the darn brake jams in my car, and then skid into the curb, and then trying to redirect the car over, end up hitting in the middle of the lane, and car was basically down. And I was just shell shocked for at least a good half an hour. I didn't know what the heck was going on. I was like, oh wow, okay, this is one heck of a birthday gift. Like, okay.
It was on your birthday?
Yeah, it was on my birthday, yeah.
On your 21st birthday, you get into this car accident.
Yep.
Okay, keep going. Holy happy! I didn't know it was on your birthday. Holy cow! Okay.
Yeah, probably one of the greatest gifts of my life. Actually, that's something to say during speeches now. But yeah, funny enough, after that, like after them, is just called AAA, and then called my mom. Like, hey mom, I'm in this car accident here on Lower Baltimore Drive, and it's like, oh my gosh, and like I'm good, no broken bones, I'm all right, and then. They get over like 10 minutes later, and in between the times, I was next to the Baltimore Gas and Electric factory, and this one lady, she was really, really kind. She just walked up and then was like, hey, you okay? Just knocking on the glass and everything. And then I finally came to. Was like, oh, okay. I just woke out of the stupor and whatnot, and then told her what happened, and then she called her tow truck over to try to get the car out the way of the road, because it was a busy street at the time, man. Well, not too busy, not like expressway busy, but it was real busy at the time. And then parents got over. Then like after that, they basically called off the truck because AAA came finally after fighting through the backed up traffic from everybody not being able to drive around, and then the police coming over, and then the dude like, oh crap, I have to write a report now because I have to call a tow truck in. There's like 3 different tow trucks that day. It was crazy. The one that the lady had for the BG truck, that got called off, and then AAA, and then like the cop, whatever, and then out of nowhere it's like, oh, after the AAA tow truck arrived, he's like, all right, good, I don't have to do no paperwork. And just seeing these cars just slowly just driving past, staring awkwardly at you, making sure it's like, hey, all right, I'm gonna keep going. Yeah, I was like, hey, can y'all like just stop staring, would you? Like, go about your business. Nobody's dead. The car is down, but hey, I was still alive, no broken bones, and still alive to tell the tale. Ended up getting the car fixed. It was like probably about a month of driving one of my mom's old cars for about a month. But it was a nice experience, though, and I was really grateful that I was still alive back then, and the fact that, like, hey, it could have been a lot worse. It could have flew out the car. The airbags could have popped out the darn steering wheel. Could have had a broken arm or something just from reaction or whatever. And the airbags didn't jump out or nothing. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
So you feel real grateful after it's over.
Yeah.
And how did that alter? that's an understatement. How did that alter the trajectory of your life? How did that change things that day? And I know it was not maybe that day, but really soon after, your dad. So how did it, you were doing the IT thing and not passionate about it, and this happened, and it really interrupted where you were going.
Yeah. It's fun enough. Later that day, Mom was like, hey, you can't give up here. It's like, you can't stop now. You've come too far to quit. Because this was basically the second to last semester to get the associates for the IT degree. And took her car, went to class that night, and came back home. They had a birthday cake for me. We all sang happy birthday. I thanked them, hugged everybody. I was like, hey, all right, I'll keep going. I was still shell-shocked from all of it. It was just really depression really from that moment, because that really stemmed from the fact that just seeing my hero decay like my father, because The month before the car accident, my father got lost for 48 hours somewhere 45 miles out of where he normally is. And that just led to us taking away his license because he couldn't drive anymore because he didn't want to get lost again. And my mother knew the fact that, hey, I can't have two folks down because she can drive, but she's getting up there in age too. And it's like, this is the future here. So she made sure that I actually stayed encouraged and actually kept pushing along and was able to shake off the cobwebs metaphorically and keep on pushing after that, which led to the whole New Year's mantra every year, become a voracious reader and trying to at least get the most positive things I can out of life. So that's really how it happened. I mean, it's kind of like the whole Rome not being built in a day thing. It's like recovery. Recovery takes time. It's like if you feel bad, it's like, all right, I'll give myself permission to feel bad. And I was like, all right, I feel bad now, but what am I going to do about it? Like, try to turn it around in a way. And it's not easy for everybody. There's levels to everything. Everything.
So your dad's diagnosis was actually before the car accident. And I thought it was after. So I apologize for that. So he had been diagnosed. Oh, cool. I'm sorry, I can't keep your story straight. Exactly. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
He was lost for a couple of days. I mean, it was it was very traumatic. My grandmother, I understand what you were going through. So anybody who's had any family member who's gone through dementia or Alzheimer's is going to 150% relate to what you went through. So Dad was diagnosed and his license was removed, and then you got into the car accident. So it was kind of, I knew it was a double whammy. I just had it backwards.
Hey, it's all good.
Yeah.
It all happens. It feels like it happens at once, like looking back.
Well, it might, even at the time, didn't it? Like, holy cow, come on, give me a break. So did you stop school or did you keep going at that point because your mom was encouraging you to?
I just kept going. Mom encouraged me to because, funny enough, back then the schedule was, it was a Thursday too. Wow, it's coming back. Yeah, so the class was that morning, and at least one of them, it was a 3-hour IT class. I think it was like network security or something. Of course, I didn't go to that, obviously. And then there was another class that happened that night, which was like the introductory class at like, I think it was like 7 to like 9 o'clock or whatever, went to that one. So still went to class, was able to get out of that and actually pass both, or was it 3? Yeah, it was 3 classes yeah, definitely 3 classes. And they were all 4-hour courses too. It it was pretty intense. It was like, 90 minutes of instruction, probably about an hour of actual testing and all the other good stuff. So I was able to actually muddle my way through and actually get a passing grade in the courses. So it was a process.
But you weren't passionate about it.
Yeah.
So you're not who I'm calling for IT, right?
No, that was not the it thing for me.
I like that. So you decide with Dad and with the car accident and feeling depression, you're going to make this New Year's mantra, and you did it. And I love what you said. You can learn a million things. If you don't do anything with it, it doesn't matter. You can get actionable advice from a speaker or from a book or from a podcast. If you don't do anything with it, you might as well not get it. So you actually started reading and took action. And now tie in with Toastmasters. How long did it take? How was that process from when you made that first mantra on? And your dad. Keep going with your dad's story too, because it parallels all this.
Yeah, it does in a way, because 2013, that was a great year. Read over like 60, 70 books that year. Got a great mindset. Incorporated some things like the power method questions, the whole what good am I going to do today? What good did I do today? 2014 was strength, and that was when my Taekwondo instructor at the time, he wanted to have his own gym. He was also going for his CrossFit certification, and he was very passionate about combining fitness with martial arts because certain martial arts artists, or at least masters, you see some of the older ones, they may have the whole dad bod sort of thing going on. I mean, they can still kick your ass, but still, it's like you see the whole dad bod coming on. It's like you didn't want that to be the thing. He always talked about how we went for his black belt in Taekwondo. His instructor told him to do 200 push-ups. But long story short, though, after that, he started his own CrossFit box across Gainesville. Followed him over there, did the Taekwondo with him, and then I got into CrossFit. And my God, it's intense. But was able to get to the point where I was able to deadlift. My one rep max was 355 pounds at the end of that year for deadlifting. And that wasn't even on my radar. I mean, like the whole better cardio, better health and everything, that was a side benefit of Taekwondo and everything. But adding the CrossFit onto it just because my instructor had the place to do it, I was like, you know, what the heck? And then just getting that level of strength and more confidence too. And little did I know that helped with two things, like shoveling snow and also restraining my dad at times when he would try to leave the house. Because even though he lost a lot of weight and he was probably 100 pounds soaking wet, nothing but bones, he still had that strength. So it was like all that CrossFit came in for like that, like, hey, gotta restrain the guy before he tries to get out the house and quote unquote go home when he's already home. And also just remembering to be patient and realizing, hey, this is almost like a 3-year-old kid asking why every 5 minutes. Like, it's just got to keep that mindset. And then, of course, 2015 was Kaizen, continuous improvement. And rebirth, I was born again. I was stronger. 2015, I actually took on a life coach, and he actually helped me to see things a little bit bigger than what I was. So with Toastmasters, there's the regular club leadership levels, and then there's also district leadership where you're overseeing multiple clubs in an area. So I decided to become an area director, area governor, for those who may be familiar with the older terminology. Yep, that sounds familiar. And that was a great time because I was like 22 at the time, and I was like, really? And like, area director? Really? Me? And it was an opportunity to just expand my network, meet a whole different group of people, and actually being able to get that challenge to actually do more. Because that was actually the same year I was challenged to do the book, and that's where Massive Action came in with 2016. Let's publish the book, make it happen. I gave myself a year. The book was thin because I only had a year to do it, and I didn't write every day like some people do. It's like, you know what? I wrote every weekend after work. So it's really been one heck of a great journey in the learning process too, and that's the good thing about nowadays with the thin book. Because a friend of mine named Marty McNair, he has this thing called Mikasa Sukasa where he's helping folks overcome addiction and they're trying to stay clean. And one guy noticed, like, hey, this book is thin. It's so thin. The guys might actually take this book and read it. So that's an encouragement out there for anyone who's looking to write a book. It doesn't have to be 200, 700 pages. It can be thin because folks got low attention spans. And if someone's recovering from addiction and needs something small to read, you may be that ticket to helping them overcome that.
That's a great piece of advice, actually. Yeah. Don't minimize the smallness. It's still valuable information. I didn't think about the fact that I read yours online so I didn't have the physical copy in my hand. And I never even thought about that yours was smaller or thinner because that's not what's important. It's the content. Yeah. Where was your dad in the journey? Because I know that was hitting you. You're doing all of this massive self-improvement, pushing yourself to 50 plus books a year, having a mantra every year, doing a lot of self-development. I thought you were 23, maybe it was 22 when you got that status in Toastmasters, and you were really young for that.
Yeah, because the average member is 35 plus years old. So
that's incredible. So while that's all happening, your dad is degenerating. What happened with his process?
Yeah, so with him, that was one heck of a year. So shortly after the book was published, we had to take him to the hospital, and this is going to be some strange advice, but if you're gonna go to the hospital, nobody wants to go, but don't go on a Monday. Don't go on a Monday, because the thing about Alzheimer's is the many strokes that come with it, and I believe my father had that because he couldn't move at all. It was the weekend, and we thought he might have hit something because he was at a fall risk, and since he was at a fall risk, we put him back in bed, asked him if he could move, and he was moving okay, but Monday he couldn't move at all. So we just basically had to take him to the hospital, and that was the worst hospital visit ever, because it was me and my brother at the time. I had to pick him up, put him in the car, and then drive him over. We had to take out the wheelchair, put him in the wheelchair, get him in for everything, the triage and all the other nonsense. And I was just so pissed because this one chick was so mad demanding a wheelchair. Like, where's my wheelchair? Chick was like freaking 500 pounds. And she hopped out of one wheelchair and spun into another wheelchair like she was in a lowrider or something. I'm like, motherfucker, why are you in a wheelchair if you can move like that? And just stuff like that, and then leaving him in there. And after that, he was in the hospital for a week. Then we got him into a nursing home after that because everybody was burnt out. My mother especially. Out of everybody, she was taking it the hardest because they were together for 56 years at the time. And that it's really hard because she's seen him at his worst and his best. And this was really rock bottom. Well, beyond rock bottom, if there is even such a phase of life. And that was where he was. And she needed a break. And it was both a blessing and a curse in a way, because the blessing was everybody got somewhat of a mental break from that in the way we could still visit him during visiting hours, but also the fact that he was in an unfamiliar territory and some of his inner PTSD was kicking in. He was sometimes talking about he'd like try to break out of the place or whatever because it's not home or whatever. And funny enough, we actually was able to get him back home for Christmas for a couple hours, and we had to take him back so that way we could keep him in the nurse another week, so that since the insurance is covering it, because the insurance is covering a month stay at the time, and little did I know the day after, around 2:30 at night, he fell and cracked 4 ribs and his lung collapsed, and then he had to be taken to the emergency room. We ran over to the hospital, and they were able to do an emergency surgery and preserve his life. That toughness still stayed through, and then not funny enough, but like a few months later, it was a blessing in disguise because the insurance ran out for one end for the one nursing home, but moved him over to another one, and it was really rough for him because it's like he just had a good time. Mom was happy. We're all happy for Christmas, playing old Christmas music, giving him some food, probably the best food he had in weeks because all the nursing home food wasn't really good, to be honest. It didn't look good at all. Sometimes they snuck him some food when we visited him. And he never really recovered from that. And just week by week. And finally on March 13th, he just passed away. And it was very, very sad because of just seeing that whole transition period, because I remember the night before that Sunday, we stayed there until around 10:30 at night. Looking in his eyes, it looked like stained glass windows in his eyes. And I was surprised. I just couldn't really fathom that. I've never seen someone's eyes look like that before, just seeing someone go through that death process. And it was a very rough time. But it was an actual, I guess, fulfilling time as well, because on that Monday, the hospice care, he was given an honorary certificate for his service as a veteran, because funny enough, for years on end, he never went back to the VA for any help at all. He actually was a bus driver after he got out of service a few years after marrying my mom, and he was a bus driver for 35 years, and he used the money from that and benefits from that, and he didn't get that help from the VA until about a year before his death. And he started him that day, and there's just studies about like the fact that sometimes when someone's going through the death process, there's something may be happening on the outside, on the inside. I'm not sure if from his vision that he was being honored at a heavenly gate or something with the angels, because it was, because we all shed tears that day. One of the ladies came in, she played the guitar. It was really great. Played some hymns and put on his airborne cap. Tears coming down his eyes. It's like he had an idea it was there, and then he passed away a few hours later. Because funny enough, I was actually planning to do a Toastmasters Club visit to do a whole report or whatever, to do a report in the club. Canceled that, and I was still scheduled to work that evening at 5. I went there at 5, and I got the call around 7:30. It's like, hey, your dad's dead. My mom called me. I'm like, oh, dang. So that, in a way, kind of solved the issue of like, all right, I had to work till 9 that night. And that solved this mystery of, hey, how can I get visiting hours? Like, how am I going to bust into the place? I mean, I got a cousin who works there. Maybe she could let me in. That solved that issue. And after he passed away, we went home, and then a snowfall came. The city was basically shut down. And that was really some solace in that moment, because that snowstorm was a blessing in disguise, because the day after we got it, our home turned into a call center, fielding calls left and right from family, friends, and everybody, and just settling some funeral issues and like how we're going to do the whole celebration of life thing. So that was really how it all happened. So basically just the book itself in that year and getting that out. I mean, I got on TV that year. Mom, she read some of the book to him. So and funny enough, she mentioned the part when I thanked both them in the beginning dedication of the book. And she told me that, hey, he said that guy's really smart, wrote that book. I'm okay, yeah, his wit came out in that moment. But yeah, that was a really trying time. That was a really trying time. I mean, we all got to go through the grief process, and everybody takes it at their own pace. So.
And you decided through all this, I mean, I still think it's pretty fantastic. 1, your age, and 2, how much self-improvement you were doing through this whole process with your dad. And I'm so glad he got to know about the book. I wasn't sure the timing. And then you pushed through, you started the podcast and wrote a second book. So your way of pushing through is kind of more self-improvement.
Yeah, that and dirty bulking, eating everything in sight.
Oh, I forgot about this. You did have a lot of grief and depression after your dad. I'm not minimizing this. I forgot. I did read somewhere that you put on a bunch of weight. Like you were healthy and doing self-improvement, and then heavy bulking.
That's what I call it now. I was like, yeah, it's not gaining weight. It's dirty bulking. That's all. It's getting some muscle eventually.
No, don't. I'm a runner. We call it carb loading. And I'm like, you don't need to carb load 4,000 calories for running 2 miles. It does not equate. So you did. You dealt with your depression and your grief with dirty bulking. That was kind of your outlet. Am I correct? Or correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, you're right. Because, I mean, yeah, because I lost track of it. It was probably about, I think it was June 2017 that year. Book sales were down because it was just horrible. I lost track of everything. It was like, book, forget that. Let me just get back to work and whatnot. And then out of nowhere, I was gaining all this weight, and then I was just running on empty. So for those maybe in leadership, I recommend the book called Leading on Empty by Wayne Cadderio. Because I wish I would have read that book 5 years ago. However, I'm not sure if I would have appreciated it last year when I read it. because it talks about how this pastor, he actually collapsed in the middle of the pulpit because he had this positive attitude that was so rock solid strong that it masked a lot of things. And that's what happened to me. I had the same issue because I have a rock solid positive mental attitude, but it's like that can be a detriment in the way to me because you feel healthy or feel strong, but there's some underlying things that you might need to get checked out in the process. And like at the end of the month of June, toastmasters, everything, I was burnt out. I was probably a good 254 pounds compared to the 180 pounds that I started off with when I started in 2015 after CrossFit and gaining all that strength. So yeah, it was that, and then just realizing, hey, you got to refocus and just do something to actually continue to get the voice out there and getting the brand out there. And that's kind of where the podcast came to be, and kind of went back to that whole altruism thing. It's like interviewing authors because like, all right, I wrote a book. All right, what's I can do next? Oh, okay. Maybe get on radio shows or podcasts. How do you do that? Oh, okay. And then it's like, all right, let me at least provide a platform for authors, especially first-time authors, to do that so that way they get that practice under their belt. Because if one good person sees something in you and they listen to you, then you can run for a lifetime. So it's like trying to help folks run for a lifetime. And I bet you probably love that analogy.
I do love that one. I might steal that. See, sometimes you come out with stuff that I just need to steal, and that's all right. When did the realization? It's interesting that you said that sometimes a positive attitude masks stuff. That's really it's making me stop and think and pause, because you're right. You're so positive and upbeat. You're not recognizing stuff that maybe you should recognize. That's very interesting. And when did you realize, the book, and you need to get back on, when did you realize, okay, the weight's an issue and I need to continue to move forward, not just clock in and gain weight?
Yeah, there's two things. It was the meeting with my boss that summer, and the fact that I tried to put on some pants and they weren't fitting me as well. And it's like, hey, wait a second. Why is my wallet not fitting in this pocket here?
Yeah, I bet not.
But yeah, that was really the meeting with my boss sort of thing, because I was following and certain areas. I had a good performance review and all the good stuff. She was kind to me. Still got a raise that year and all this stuff. But a week after, kind of screwed up some things, and then she pulled out these old performance reviews right before I got promoted, during the promotion, and it mentioned I was a top performer for these years on end, and then to the last two I wasn't a top performer anymore. And that really led to the whole thesis of book number 2, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. It's awareness. Being aware of yourself and aware of everything around you in different ways. So being aware of your mindset, being aware of your time, being aware of the stuff that's influencing you, being aware of who's in your circle that's influencing you, and being aware of your habits. I wasn't aware of my habits, my time, and my mindset. I wasn't really aware. I was just keeping my nose to the grindstone, brute force, just charge ahead, and then eventually create something. But if you're half dead or dead halfway through the process, does it really mean anything? So awareness is the major key that allows the other 7 keys to really take place and hopefully add to your arsenal, because that's really where it came from, a place of a lack of awareness. I wasn't aware of what's going on. It's like the whole watch the bed of roses. Like, oh, there's some thorns in the roses, buddy. It's like you got to notice the thorns too. So that's really where it came from, and that's where book 2 came from, a place of, you know what? Yeah, a positive attitude is great, but you know what? Let me at least keep that and be aware to don't have delusions of grandeur.
I loved this. Well, I enjoyed both of your books, but book 2, definitely, now that I know where it came from, I understand why I connected with it in a different way. And the 7 steps, I mean, it's not a lot, but until they're right in front of you, there's so much about that book that I loved. And time's a huge one that people don't consider. Where is your time going? And like, when are you the most productive? Just because I'm the most productive in the morning doesn't mean you are. I think people really need to look at it in a bigger picture. So I loved that book a lot. It also is accountability. You can use the book to check out where you are in each one of those steps and kind of where you need to make some changes. So I really appreciate knowing where you were in your life when you read it. That makes an even bigger impact for when all of our listeners pick it up and read it. How did you lose the weight? And I want to end. You give back all the time. I mean, everything about you has been through this whole journey. It is who you are and what your business is and your podcast. But I want to end on a word of advice. So tell me about the weight, and then that gives you some time to percolate on that piece of advice.
Yeah, so the best way to lose some weight is get bigger clothes. That's right.
Nailed it.
It's like, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so that's the advice also.
I mean, unless you want tight-fitting clothes, that never mind. No, but seriously though, what helped me to really get some of the weight off is getting more sleep, and kind of went to the book on that with the habit awareness thing, with the whole leading on empty phase. My father, with the old dementia thing, he would wake up in the middle of the night, walk through the house, sneak through the house or whatever, thinking he was, I don't know what he was thinking, to be honest. And just waking up in the middle of the night with that, and then driving all over the DMV as well, and just wasn't getting enough sleep. There'd be nights where I get maybe 2 to 3 hours of sleep, maybe even no sleep. And I just drink some coffee, maybe some Red Bull, something to keep me up during the day, and that was just bad. And eventually got to the point where I snored, and it was like, shoot, I know I snored. That's how bad it was. So for those out there who may be a part of Team No Sleep, try to get at least a good 7.5 hours of sleep every night if you can, because that was one of the major things that led to the weight gain, is that I wasn't getting enough sleep, and also kind of slacked off on the working out piece as well. So just getting enough rest, some sleep, also not trying to eat everything in sight, and drinking more water as well. That's definitely good. Of course, you'll bleed the lizard a lot more than normal with the extra water, but it's always good. I mean, it's always good to stay hydrated, especially during the summer. So water, rest, cutting the portions in half, you'll get the pounds down. You'll sweat it down, sweat it off, and then maybe you'll get a Jen Taylor bod.
You might not want the Jen. Your voice is a little deep for the Jen Taylor bod. Very curvy. Very curvy.
Yeah.
It might not look right on you. Just saying.
It wouldn't. I probably have to use some skin lightening cream too.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're light.
You don't sound like a 5'8", blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman, but maybe that's just me.
That's right. Call me the health inspector. Oh my God.
Exactly.
I got the soap bar right here. Let me stop.
I said in the beginning we were going to laugh. We're going to talk about tough stuff, and we're going to laugh. That's my favorite. So how would you end for people that are really struggling? You know, grief is a big word. It can encompass a lot more than death. Anxiety, depression, grief. What is your advice other than reading your books? I already said that. That's my advice. But what would you say? What was really what got you through? I mean, I know awareness. Was it faith? Was it family?
Yeah, faith, family is also great as well. And awareness is the main thing, like I mentioned before. And also self-care. Self-care as well. Give yourself space to grieve. There'd be times I'd be in a random room where there's no one around. At the library, it's like, yeah, I'm just bust out the tears because certain songs that bring back memories. I'm like, oh, shoot, and then bust out the tears, find a place, and give yourself space to grieve as well. That it's okay. That it's okay to cry, even as a dude. I mean, I got some pride in me, and it can be a hindrance, but like, just find a place, give yourself a corner, give yourself that space to grieve, let the tears come out, and then just keep it moving afterwards if you can. And it's always different for everybody. There's the whole 7 stages of grief sort of thing. No, I don't know all 7 stages of grief. I've probably been through them already, and I have no idea what they were in order, and people go out of order with them. But just give yourself that time, that space to do it, and just give yourself not only that time, but also the meditation time as well, just to be open with it, and just accept the fact that they're gone and that they may be gone in human form, but they are still alive in soul and spirit in a way, as a guardian angel in a way. And just making sure that you're grateful for the life and everything that you've done, and just keep sharing stories about them. Heck, like some folks, they hear me in certain Toastmasters meetings, like, man, I've never heard that story from him before. And it's like, yeah, I'm a pretty private guy for the most part, except for the naked podcaster talk. But yeah, pretty much a private guy. It's like, yeah, certain stories, like, yeah, let me just give you the content, stories about someone else's success. Yeah, but yeah, just sharing stories, and that'll heal as well. Just give yourself that time to heal, because time eventually heals in a way. And funny enough, there is a part that folks don't want to tell you about. Apparently the second year is worse than the first one. And I can kind of agree with that in a way, because it's like, yeah, people don't want to tell you that, because it's like, man, you're already feeling bad. It's like, shoot, let's not have them jump off the bridge. But just like it, every year it gets better in a way, but there's parts where it can get worse. So just being open to that and realizing, hey, I'm still alive to tell the tale. Let me share the good things that they've done, and hopefully they get inspired by it.
Dom, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I really appreciate you.
Oh, appreciate you too. Yes, indeed.
Thank you for taking the time to get naked with us. If you'd like